Okay, Lewis, we're going to talk, or you want to talk about the nature of God. I mean, the idea of God has had a fairly bad rap over the past century, I guess. More and more people are atheists. More and more people don't believe in a God. They ask questions like, well, if there's a God, how could all these terrible things happen? So clearly you have a different idea about the nature of God. And I think people might be interested to hear what that is.
My God, Martin, is what I've learned as I come to more clarity reading and studying Spinoza. Einstein uh, claimed or proclaimed that his God is the God of Spinoza. What did he mean, and why was it important that he said what he said? But let's go back to the nature of God. According to Spinoza, and this sounds very intellectual, but I'll see how I can bring it to everyday language. Spinoza's God is this, that it, or God, is nature, the whole of nature. Now, I'm not talking about the trees and the birds and the bees and the water. Yes, that is a manifestation of his nature. But what God is a being that has or is comprised of infinite attributes. And each attribute expresses his nature. One attribute is called the attribute of thought. The other attribute is the attribute of extension. These two attributes, Martin, expresses or is manifested in man's nature. We have a body, and that body expresses this attribute called the attribute of extension. The physical universe is the manifestation of God's attribute called extension. And the other attribute, thought, the attribute of thought, is the thinking part of man. Man is a thinking thing. The mind is a thinking thing. You know, you mentioned atheists. Yes, atheists are individuals who say there's no God. I think this scientist on this wheelchair, Hawkins, Stephen Hawkins,
Yeah.
proclaims in his great intellectual powers. He says he looked at the universe and he, with his mathematical genius abilities, proclaims, God does not exist. And I have an idea what an atheist is. An atheist is basically, not only is he ignorant to the reality of nature, of what really is, but an atheist really is against something. And what is he against? The traditional, conventional attitudes and beliefs of what is called Christianity today. Christianity follows images, words, and is truly confused about what the nature of God is. They put these images, a man on the cross, they call Jesus. Now today is a Saturday, the day before Easter Sunday. And Jesus Christ is celebrated throughout the world if you are so-called Christian. And they see this image, and they follow and they see this image on the cross, and the Sunday Easter, uh, or Easter Sunday, is the day of resurrection, the resurrection of his body, that he really did not die, that he will always exist. But what is Jesus, Martin? What is Jesus? And I understand Jesus to be an individual with a mind of intelligence, a thinking individual that understands the nature of God. But Christian attitude is he is a body. And that's all they see, is a body. They don't see a man with great wisdom that understood God's nature. Atheists see the trivial and the magical, non-scientific fellowship, or say beliefs, as being ridiculous. And they are. I agree with the atheists. But they're against traditional, conventional beliefs and attitudes about what God is. So the atheists are against that fable, that magic, that fiction. It's all fiction. Yes, this is when this kind of a video or audio will get a lot of people angry, because they feel threatened by their beliefs. They will get angry because their power is in their beliefs. No clear thinking, no clear understanding. And I found Spinoza to be very clear, as I've been studying for the last 45 years, not just studying him, but studying my nature. Because to understand God, we must understand our nature. And what is God? And this is the problem that we all have. We're taught what God is. God is a thing, a being of, say, superhuman powers. We are an image of this thing. So God must be like has a shape, a physical being, a superhuman being with great powers. And he dispenses favors. He punishes those who do not follow the goodwill of mankind. And there are certain groups of people believe, called the Jewish people, believe that they are the chosen people. That's absolutely ridiculous. God does not favor anyone. God is for all. And also, there's no violence in God's nature. And this is hard to believe, because why is there such horror? Why are there diseases, cancer? Why are there wars? Why are people killing one another for the simplest things? Family abuse, children being imprisoned by their parents, physical and emotional abuse every day. There is so much hatred. How can God allow this? Good question. But what is the answer? The answer is, and the possibility for us is to go above, say, the muck of life. And how do we go there? We must begin to see our own pool of debris, our baggage, our confusions. What is confused is how we perceive. We perceive by our five senses, Mark. That's all we perceive. We see life through our five senses. And therefore, our mind is truly passive, meaning it doesn't have any clarity. We only imagine we don't understand. To understand God, we must have something else working in us. There must be something working called the thinking part of the mind. There's two parts of the mind. The passive part, which follows tradition, conventionality, full of hearsay and experience information, without examination. We don't examine. We are told early in life to do this and to do that. And if we don't, we might be in a state called rebellion, being against. So atheism is basically in a rebellious state. I don't believe. So there's nothing there. This is pure ignorance to the reality of what is there. What is there, Martin, is that the possibility of beginning to understand. And how can we understand? We must begin to find Spinoza. There must be something in us to want to understand Spinoza. Spinoza existed over 300 years ago, 350 years ago, born in 1632, died at the age of about 40, I believe it was 44, 47, I think it was about 44. Came to some realizations, and he studied other philosophers. He studied Descartes, particularly Descartes really gave him a path of using a method of geometry. He used geometry to prove his ideas, to clarify his thinking. And at that time, 17th century, geometry to prove thought, a clarity of thought, was a way of communicating. And only the very wealthy or the very few educated began to understand or examine Spinoza. And he was sought as the authority at the time. And kings and princesses and people in high position wanted to associate with Spinoza, even from different countries. The French monarch, kings, and Spinoza lived in Holland, near Amsterdam, and other parts of Holland. But as a boy, he became aware of his intelligence. And there is an intelligence in every individual, Martin. Spinoza found it really early in life, his intelligence, which includes the understanding, which is part of the understanding. There is an intelligence that deals with life and existence. Yes, there is an intelligence. High IQ. The educational system today values education. And basically that kind of education has to deal with existence. How to become a millionaire, a billionaire, or just become an entrepreneur. How to gain materially. How to become a success in life. How to prepare for retirement. Spinoza was not interested in that. Spinoza lived a life of poverty. He saw the real value of life was in the understanding. He and others, before he found his understanding and his mental powers, that everybody followed the same desires: money, pleasures of the senses, and fame. This is the basic motivation of all humanity. And this is why mankind suffers. Mankind suffers is because he is not able to get these wonderful things, these treasures. And yet, another man called Jesus, people call him the Son of God. I would say, yes, he had God consciousness, but the Son of God represents the understanding, not the physical body, but the understanding in the mind that it's thinking, clear thinking, is a manifestation of God's nature in the mind. See, what I'm bringing out, Martin, is very difficult to comprehend. Most will reject it. Why? Because they want to prove. They say, you prove it to me. There's an old saying in this country, the United States, a state called Missouri, and they have an attitude: show me, prove it to me. Yeah, if your mind is of such a nature, if it's weak, if it's poor quality, inferior quality of thinking, how can you comprehend Spinoza? We avoid self-reflection, Martin. Spinoza has this idea: to know God, we must know ourselves. We must know our emotions. Because our emotions, such as hate, anger, pain and pleasure, desire, fear, envy, jealousy, contempt, is only in a manifestation that our power is checked, or say weakened. Our power of understanding is depleted. We have no power. When I met my teacher, he observed me and says, your power of thinking is very weak. I don't think this work, you'll be able to do this. It's for those who can, or have some kind of thinking ability. But I stayed with my teacher, I remained with him for over 24 years. And I've been doing this now for another 20 years, Martin, to improve my understanding of what this book called Spinoza, the Ethics, which includes the improvement of our understanding and the correspondence. In the improvement, Martin, is a path, a method of how to improve the thinking capacity or potential of human nature. And this is it. Why do we suffer? Why are there so many disasters and horrors of nature? It's because man isn't truly thinking clearly. He follows his instincts, his desires, his emotions. You cannot live with those. You cannot really trust an individual. You have to be careful with individuals because they live by their emotions. They can be these emotions could be easily triggered. Rejection. An individual can be rejected so easily. Feeling rejection. Young man, of a young student, whose whole desire was to say, meet the opposite sex. He was 17 years old, 18 years old. He was afraid, deeply afraid of rejection. We all are afraid of rejection. Anything could set our anger up. If somebody cuts me off the road when I'm driving, we're rejected easily. We feel rage instantly. If we're a young man who proposes to his girlfriend and she rejects him, we want to kill her. And we do. Why? Because we feel this tremendous feeling of impotence and pain. There's a man called Louis C.K. Talks about the idea we must embrace our pain to experience the great euphoria of true power. But we first must embrace our pain. And he talks about this, about his, there was a video, and you can go on my website and see it, by Louis C.K., comedian. Talks about how individuals embrace, or say, are so caught up on their cell phone that they have to answer it immediately. And they're always texting. Why? He says, because they don't want to be in touch with their true self. And their true self is confused and full of pain. So this little cell phone, or this iPhone, is a way to escape their true feelings. And so they're busy with life. They're busy with this little device that keeps their mind focused on something else other than themselves.
Yeah, well, it was Ouspensky who said that activity is the great opium of the people. Constantly doing stuff, just so you never have to settle down into what's going on inside. So we've literally 20 minutes as I speak, Lewis. So I don't know if you want to wrap up.
Yes, let's wrap up. what you just said, Martin, is busyness, physical activity
Yes.
is the opium of the people.
Yes.
Because we believe in images. And when I met my teacher, my focus was on how I look, how I dressed, and how, and keep a smile. Because if you smile, people like you. And so my whole life was images. So to come to thinking took years for me. Some individuals like you and others have a better thinking capacity. But there's another level called intuition. So atheists, they only rebel against the authority of the current status quo of so-called Christianity, which is a fable of beliefs, not reality. I ask as atheists to study Spinoza. Because if they study Spinoza, they would be transformed. If they really follow, they can't do it themselves. They must follow, or say, not just follow, but say, go to someone or say, who knows and been there. The process of, say, self-discovery and the process of self-examination. God, or this infinite being, exists. But we first must learn how we exist and what moves us, Martin.